The cargo ship Rusty Meridian drifted through the cold darkness of space, its old engines humming with the tired sound of a vessel that had seen too many years and too many dangerous runs. Captain Elara Vance sat in her command chair, her weathered hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee as she stared at the navigation screen in front of her, who's 43 years old. And every single one of those years showed on her face. "Captain, are you sure about this route?" asked Kale Okonkwo, her young first mate, as he looked up from his console. With worry in his dark eyes, Elara did not answer right away. She knew the vast expanse was dangerous. Everyone knew it. The region of space they were about to enter had killed more ships than anyone could count, filled with the ancient ruins of a civilization that had disappeared a million years ago. The architects, they were called, though no one knew their real name. "The pay is good," Elara finally said, her voice rough from years of breathing recycled ship air. "And we need the money." Kale, "But the vast expanse." "I know what it is," she cut him off, not unkindly. "I also know that if we do not take this job, we do not eat next month." Kale nodded slowly, understanding the truth of her words. Humans were not important in the galaxy. They had been traveling among the stars for 200 years now. But the other species, the powerful ones, the old ones, they looked at humanity the way a person might look at insects, useful for small tasks. But nothing more. Humans were haulers. They took the jobs no one else wanted, flew the routes no one else would risk, carried cargo to places that other species considered beneath them. It was not glamorous work, but it was honest. And it kept the Rusty Meridian flying. The crew gathered in the small common room as the ship approached the boundary of the vast expanse. There were 6 of them in total. Elara, Kale, the engineer Marcus, the pilot Yuki, the medic Priya, and old Ben, who had been flying cargo ships since before Elara was born. "So what exactly are we carrying?" Marcus asked, scratching his bald head as he looked at the manifest on his tablet. "Sealed crates," Elara replied. "Destination coordinates and nothing else." "That does not sound suspicious at all," Yuki muttered sarcastically. "It sounds like someone paying us triple the normal rate to not ask questions," Elara said with a small smile. "And I am very good at not asking questions when the price is right." The ship crossed into the vast expanse, and immediately the view outside changed. Giant structures floated in the void, massive stations and ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. All of them dark and dead, covered in the dust of ages. The architects had been powerful beyond imagination. Their technology was so advanced that even after 1,000,000 years, no species in the galaxy had managed to understand how any of it worked. The ruins just floated there, silent monuments to a civilization that had simply vanished one day without explanation. "It gives me chills," Priya whispered, looking out the viewport at a structure that looked like a flower made of metal, each petal the size of a city. "Stay focused on your stations," Elara ordered. "We fly straight through, deliver the cargo, and get out." But the universe had other plans. 3 hours into the expanse, the Rusty Meridian shuddered violently, and alarms began screaming throughout the ship. "Engine failure," Marcus shouted from the engineering station, his fingers flying across controls that were flashing angry red. "The main drive is overheating. I cannot stop it." "Yuki, find us somewhere to land," Elara commanded. "There." Yuki pointed at the screen where a relatively small architect station floated nearby. "It has a docking bay. I think I can get us in." The next few minutes were chaos. Smoke filled the corridors as the engine finally gave out completely, and Yuki guided the ship on emergency thrusters alone, somehow managing to slide them into the ancient docking bay just before they would have been stranded forever. Rusty Meridian came to rest with a grinding screech, and then everything went silent. "Is everyone alive?" Elara called out one by one. Her crew reported in. shaken but unhurt. "The engine is destroyed," Marcus said grimly after checking the damage. "I can fix it, but I need parts, and we do not have the right ones." "Then we search the station," Alara decided. "The architects build everything bigger and better than anyone. Maybe we can find something useful." The station was dark and quiet as they explored, their flashlights cutting through shadows that had not seen light in countless ages. Dust covered every surface, and strange symbols decorated the walls, the writing of the architects, which no one in the galaxy had ever been able to read. Kale walked ahead of the group, his natural curiosity pulling him forward. He had always been fascinated by languages and had studied xenolinguistics at university before economic reality forced him into cargo. "Hauling, Captain," he called back, his voice echoing strangely in the vast corridors. "There is something here, a chamber of some kind." The crew gathered at the entrance to a massive circular room. In the center stood a pedestal surrounded by machinery that looked almost organic, curves and lines flowing together in ways that made the human eye struggle to understand what it was seeing. "We should not go in there," Old Ben said, his weathered face pale in the flashlight globe. But Kale had already stepped through the doorway the moment his foot crossed the threshold. Light exploded throughout the chamber. The machinery that had been dead for 1,000,000 years suddenly hummed with power. Glowing lines racing across the floor and up the walls like veins filled with liquid starlight. "Kale!" Alara shouted, rushing forward to grab him. The instant she entered the room, a beam of brilliant white light shot down from the ceiling and engulfed her. She felt something scanning her, not just her body, but her mind, her memories, her very soul. One by one, each crew member was pulled into the light, examined by technology beyond their comprehension, and then it was over. The light faded, and the machinery went quiet once more. "Is everyone okay?" Alara gasped, her heart pounding. "I think so," Kale said shakily. "But Captain, your arm." Alara looked down and felt her blood turn to ice on her forearm. Glowing with soft golden light against her dark skin was a symbol she had never seen before, intricate lines and curves that seemed to shift slightly when she looked at them directly. It was burned into her flesh, but it did not hurt. It felt warm, almost alive. "What is it?" Priya asked, her medical training making her reach for her scanner. "I do not know," Alara whispered, but somewhere deep inside her, in a place she could not explain, she felt something awaken, knowledge that was not her own. A connection to something vast and ancient and impossibly powerful behind them. The station began to shake. "We need to leave," Kale said urgently. "Now." They ran back to the ship, and Marcus somehow got the damaged engines working just enough to escape as the rusty Meridian limped away from the station. Alara looked back through the viewport. The ancient structure was glowing now, light pulsing from within like a heartbeat, and then it exploded, sending a wave of energy racing outward across the galaxy, a signal that had been waiting 1,000,000 years to be sent. Alara did not know it yet, but everything had just changed, not just for her, not just for her crew, but for all of humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The rusty Meridian limped through space like a wounded animal, its damaged engines groaning with every moment of thrust inside the ship. The crew sat in stunned silence, still trying to understand what had happened to them in that ancient chamber. But no one was more confused than Captain Alara Vanshi. Sat alone in her quarters, staring at the mark on her forearm. It glowed softly in the darkness, pulsing with a gentle golden light that matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. When she closed her eyes, she could see things, images that made no sense, symbols that somehow felt familiar even though she had never seen them before. "Captain?" Kale's voice came through the door. "May I come in?" "Yes," she replied. Not looking up from her arm, the young first mate entered and sat down across from her, his eyes immediately drawn to the glowing mark. "I have been doing research," he said quietly. using every database I can access, trying to find anything about what happened to us. And? Nothing, Kale admitted. No species in recorded history has ever reported architect technology activating like that, not in a million years of exploration. Alara finally looked up at him, and Kale was startled by what he saw in her eyes. There was something different about her now, something deeper and older than should have been possible. I can read their writing, she said softly. What? The architects, Alara continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Those symbols on the walls that no one has ever been able to understand. I can read them now. Kale. Before Kale could respond, the ship's alarms began blaring proximity alert. Yuki's voice shouted over the intercom. We have company. A big ship just dropped out of faster than light right on top of us. Alara and Kale rushed to the bridge, where the crew had gathered around the main view screen. What they saw made their blood run cold. Valanti warship hung in space before them, its sleek purple hull bristling with weapons that could destroy the rusty Meridian. 1,000 times over, the Valanti were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. Members of the ruling council that controlled all of known space, they did not waste their time on insignificant human cargo haulers. They are hailing us, Marcus said, his voice tight with fear. Open the channel, Alara ordered. Trying to keep her voice steady, the view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a Valanti face. High Commander Sareth Vel was tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and eyes that glowed with ancient intelligence. His species had ruled their portion of the galaxy for 10,000 years, and every line of his face showed the arrogance that came with such power. Human vessel, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. You will prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. On what authority? Alara demanded. Surprised by her own boldness, the High Commander's glowing eyes narrowed. I do not explain myself to lesser species. You have 5 minutes. The screen went dark. We cannot fight them, Old Ben said grimly. We cannot run either. Our engines can barely move us forward. Then we let them board, Alara decided, and we find out what they want. The Valanti soldiers who came aboard moved with cold efficiency, scanning every room and every crew member. Then High Commander Sareth Vel himself stepped onto the rusty Meridian, his tall form forced to duck beneath the low human ceilings. His glowing eyes swept across the crew with obvious disdain until they landed on Ala. More specifically, they landed on her arm. The mark had begun glowing brighter the moment the Valanti arrived. As if responding to their presence, Sareth Vel's reaction was instant and shocking. The arrogance drained from his face, replaced by something Alara had never expected to see on a Valanti. Pure, absolute terror. He stumbled backward, nearly falling, his composure completely shattered. Impossible, he breathed, his voice shaking. It cannot be. Not the humans. What are you talking about? Alara demanded, stepping forward. Stay back, the High Commander shouted, and for the first time, Alara heard real fear in an alien voice. Vel's hands were trembling as he activated a communication device on his wrist. Emergency transmission to the Galactic Concord, he said. His words rushed and panicked. Priority level absolute. The humans, the architects have marked the humans. They have chosen successors, I repeat. The architects have chosen the humans as their inheritors. The bridge of the rusty Meridian fell completely. Alara felt like the universe had suddenly tilted beneath her feet. Inheritors? Kale whispered. Inheritors of what? But Sareth Vel was no longer listening. He was staring at Alara with an expression that mixed terror with hatred in equal measure. Do you understand what you have done? He hissed. Do you have any idea what that mark means? No, Alara replied honestly. I do not. Perhaps you could explain it to me. It means everything changes, the High Commander said, his voice hollow. It means 1,000,000 years of waiting is over. It means you're worthless. Insignificant species has just become the most important thing in the galaxy. He turned and marched back toward his ship, but paused at the airlock. "You will come with us to the Galactic Concord," he said. Not looking back. Every species will want to see you. Some will want to worship you. Others will want to study you. He finally turned, and his eyes were cold with murderous intent. "And some of us will want to kill you before you can claim what the architects left behind." Within hours, the news had spread across the entire galaxy. The signal that had burst from the destroyed architect station had been detected by every civilization with the technology to listen, and it carried a message that shook the foundations of galactic society. The architects, the mysterious builders who had vanished a million years ago, had left an inheritance, and they had chosen humanity to receive it on 1,000 worlds. Alien species reacted with shock, fear, curiosity, and rage. The humans were nobody, cargo haulers and laborers. A young species barely worth noticing. How could they have been chosen over civilizations that had existed for millions of years? On Earth, governments scrambled to understand what was happening in the colonies scattered across human space. People looked up at the stars and wondered what the future would bring, and on the rusty meridian, escorted by Volanti warships toward the heart of galactic civilization, Elara Vance sat alone in her quarters. The mark on her arm pulsed with golden light, and in her mind, she could feel something vast, awakening knowledge and power that had waited a million years for someone to claim it. She did not ask for this, none of them did, but ready or not, humanity was about to step onto the galactic stage in a way no one had ever imagined. And Elara knew, deep in her bones, that nothing would ever be the same again. The cargo hauler from the edge of nowhere had just become the most important human being alive, and the galaxy was watching. Nexus Prime was the largest space station in the galaxy, a massive construct that floated at the crossroads of a dozen major trade routes. It was here that the Galactic Concord held its meetings, the council of 12 ruling species that had controlled known space for longer than humanity had existed, and it was here that Captain Elara Vance now stood, surrounded by beings that looked upon her with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and hatred. The assembly chamber was vast beyond human imagination, a circular room that could hold thousands of representatives from every corner of the galaxy today. It was packed to overflowing. Gellar and her crew stood on a platform in the center, feeling very small and very alone around them. Alien faces of every shape and color watched and whispered. "This is insane," Marcus muttered under his breath. "I am just an engineer. What am I doing here?" "Standing with your captain," Elara replied quietly. "That is what you are doing." A deep bell sounded, and silence fell over the chamber. The 12 ruling species took their places on elevated thrones arranged in a semicircle above the platform. Elara recognized High Commander Sereth Vel among the Volanti delegation, his cold eyes fixed upon her with undisguised hostility. "We are gathered here to address an unprecedented event," announced the speaker, a member of the insectoid Kara species, whose multiple eyes glittered with intelligence. "The activation of architect technology and the marking of a human is what ancient texts call the first inheritor." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "This is impossible," shouted a voice from the Volanti section. "The humans are primitives. They have been in space for only 200 years. "And yet the mark exists," replied another voice. This one, calm and musical Elara, turned to see a shell representative, a being that looked like a tall, slender humanoid made of living crystal. "We have verified it ourselves," the shell continued. "The mark on this human is genuine. Architect technology, the first to activate in over 1,000,000 years. Then we must destroy her." Sereth Vel's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "We must destroy all humans before they can claim what was left behind." "And what exactly was left behind?" Elara spoke up, her voice carrying across the vast space with a strength that surprised even her. "No one has told us anything. We did not ask for this. And we do not even know what it means." Silence fell over the chamber once more. The chorus speaker's many eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. "You truly do not know?" it asked. "I am a cargo hauler," Elara replied simply. 3 days ago. My biggest problem was a broken engine now. I am standing here with a glowing mark on my arm and half the galaxy wanting me dead." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the shale representative rose from their seat. "Perhaps it is time the truth was shared," they said, their crystalline voice filling the chamber. "Open the archives. Let everyone see what the architects truly intended." Despite protests from the Volanti, the ancient archives were unsealed. Holographic displays flickered to life throughout the chamber, showing records that had been hidden for countless ages. What they revealed changed everything. The architects had not simply vanished. They had prepared 1,000,000 years ago. Before they departed this realm of existence, they had seeded the galaxy with their greatest creations. Dormant fleets of ships more powerful than anything that existed today. Machines that could reshape entire planets. Knowledge repositories containing the secrets of the universe itself. But these treasures were locked away, waiting for a species worthy of inheriting them. The architects tested every species that achieved spaceflight. The shale explained as images flowed through the air. Thousands of civilizations over 1,000,000 years, and every single one failed. What were they testing for? Kale asked, unable to contain his curiosity. Not intelligence. Many species far more intelligent than humans have been tested and rejected. The shale replied, "Not strength, not technology, not age." The test measured something else entirely. The holographic display showed ancient architect symbols, and Elara felt her mark pulse as understanding flowed into her mind. "Adaptability," she said softly. The knowledge coming from somewhere beyond herself. The ability to change and grow, to face the impossible and find a way forward. Everyone turned to stare at her. "Resilience," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "The refusal to give up even when everything seems lost." "Cooperation," Kale added, his own understanding dawning. "Working together, even when it is hard, even when there are differences." "And something else?" Elara finished, looking up at the assembled species with clear eyes. "Something the architects valued above all else. The capacity to choose kindness when cruelty would be easier." Sareth Vel's face had gone pale. "You see?" he shouted, pointing at Elara. "She is already accessing their knowledge in time. She will access their weapons, their fleets, their planet killers." "Perhaps," the shale agreed calmly, "but the architects chose her, not you, and there must be a reason for that. The reason is a mistake." Sareth Vel raged. "Our species was tested long ago, and we were told we failed, but the test must have been flawed, the standards wrong." And there it was, the truth beneath the Volanti's fury. They had been tested, they had been found wanting, and now they had to watch as a species they considered inferior received what they believed should have been theirs. "This council must act," Sarethvel declared, regaining his composure with visible effort. "The humans must be contained, studied, and, if necessary, eliminated for the safety of the entire galaxy. You would murder billions of innocent people because you are jealous?" Elara's voice was quiet but carried throughout the chamber. "I would protect the galaxy from a species that could gain power beyond imagination," Sarethvel replied coldly. "History shows what young species do when they gain too much too fast. They destroy. And what do old species do when they have had power for too long?" Elara countered. "They forget what it was like to be young. They become afraid of change, afraid of anything they cannot control." The chamber erupted, and chaos species that had been allies for millennia suddenly found themselves on opposite sides, the Volanti and their supporters demanded action. Against humanity, the Shale and others argued for patience, for trust in the architect's judgment, and in the middle of it all, Alara felt her mark burning brighter than ever before. She could sense them now, the hidden places throughout the galaxy where architect technology waited, fleets, weapons, knowledge beyond measure, all of it calling to her, waiting to be claimed. But she also sensed something else, a choice. That power could be used for conquest or protection, for revenge or mercy, for destruction or creation, and somehow Alara knew that this choice, how humanity decided to use what they had been given, was the real test. Everything that came before had just been preparation. Now the true trial would begin as the chamber descended into arguments and accusations. Alara looked at her crew, her family, Marcus, Yuki, Priya, Ben, and Kale. Simple people, ordinary people, just trying to survive in a universe that had never been kind to them, but they had always chosen to be kind to each other. Maybe that was the point all along. Maybe that was why the architects chose them. Humanity was about to face its greatest challenge, and Alara would make sure they faced it together. War came to humanity like a storm without warning. The Volanti did not wait for the Galactic Concord to reach a decision. High Commander Sarath Vel gathered his fleets and struck at human space with overwhelming force. The first attack hit the colony on New Manila, a peaceful world of farmers and fishermen who had never harmed anyone. Within hours, 3 million people were dead, and the planet was burning. "They're not trying to defeat us," Kale said grimly as reports poured in from across human space. "They are trying to exterminate us." Alara stood at the center of a makeshift command room on Earth, surrounded by military leaders and government officials who looked to her for answers. She did not have the mark on her arm, had been glowing constantly since the war began, filling her mind with visions of places she had never seen, architect sites scattered throughout the galaxy, waiting to be found. "The Volanti fleet is heading for Earth," announced Admiral Chun, an old soldier whose face showed the strain of watching his people die. "They will arrive in 3 days. We do not have the ships to stop them." 3 days until the end of humanity. 3 days until everything was over. But Alara was not ready to give up. "There is something here," she said, placing her hand over her heart. The architects did not just leave gifts scattered randomly. They left protection for their chosen inheritors. She closed her eyes and reached out with the strange new sense the mark had given her. She could feel the soul system around her: Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, and something else, something hidden, something waiting there, she whispered, her eyes snapping open. In the asteroid belt, there is an architect station buried inside an asteroid that everyone thought was just rock. Admiral Chun looked skeptical, but he sent ships to investigate. What they found changed everything. The asteroid cracked open like an egg when Alara approached, revealing a structure of impossible beauty, a defense grid that had been sleeping for 1,000,000 years, waiting for this exact moment. How do I activate it? Alara wondered aloud. The mark pulsed, and she simply knew. She pressed her palm against a panel, and the entire soul system lit up with golden light. Ancient weapons platforms emerged from the surfaces of moons and planets. A fleet of architect warships, hundreds of them, powered up in hidden bases throughout the system. Defensive shields surrounded Earth and every human colony. When the Volanti fleet arrived 3 days later, expecting an easy slaughter, they flew straight into a wall of fire and light. The battle for Sol was brutal but brief. Architect weapons were beyond anything the Volanti had imagined, and their mighty fleet was reduced to burning wreckage in a matter of hours. Rothvel escaped in a damaged ship, his pride wounded, but his hatred burning brighter than ever on Earth. People danced in the streets. Humanity had survived, but Alara knew this was just the beginning. They will not stop, she told the gathered leaders. The Volanti will call their allies, gather more ships, and try again. We need to do more than defend. We need to find the architect throne. The what? Admiral Chun asked. The heart of everything they built, Alara explained. Information flowing from the mark into her consciousness. A station at the center of the galaxy that controls all architect technology. If we reach it first, we can end this war before millions more die. What followed was the largest conflict the galaxy had ever seen. Alara led a coalition of human ships and sympathetic alien species. Bishale sent their crystal fleets, and several smaller races who had long suffered under Volanti rule joined the cause. They fought their way across the galaxy. Battle after battle, loss after loss at the siege of the Korath homeworld. Marcus was wounded badly and nearly died at the crossing of the Void Straits. Old Ben sacrificed his ship to save a convoy of refugees at the Battle of the Shattered Moons. Yuki flew a mission that should have been impossible, destroying an enemy superweapon seconds before it would have killed millions, and through it all, Alara felt herself changing every time she used the mark, every time she activated another piece of architect technology. Something inside her was consumed. The power was not free. It cost her something. Though she could not explain exactly what. You are dying, Priya told her quietly one night, after running medical scans that showed impossible results. Your cells are changing. The mark is rewriting your DNA, and I do not know if your body can survive it. How long? Alara asked calmly. Maybe months, maybe weeks. I cannot tell. Alara nodded slowly, accepting the news with a strange peace. Then we had better hurry. The final push toward the galactic core was the bloodiest fighting, yet Sarth Vel had gathered every ally the Volanti had, creating an armada that stretched across entire star systems. But humanity and their allies pushed forward anyway, driven by something the Volanti did not understand: the absolute refusal to surrender. The determination to keep fighting no matter the cost. Why did they not break? Sarth Vel raged aboard his flagship, watching yet another human ship ram into an enemy vessel rather than retreat. We outnumber them. We outgun them. Why do they keep coming? His advisor, an ancient Volanti scholar, watched the battle with thoughtful eyes. Perhaps, the old one said quietly, this is why the architects chose them. Finally, after months of war that left scars across 1,000 worlds, the coalition fleet reached the galactic core, and there it was. The architect throne, a station the size of a small moon, glowing with golden light at the very heart of the galaxy, surrounded by stars being born and dying in spectacular displays of cosmic power. We made it, Kale breathed, standing beside Alara on the bridge of their new flagship. That their victory celebration was cut short behind them. The largest Volanti fleet ever assembled dropped out of faster than light. Travel Sarth Vel's voice came over the communication channel, cold and final. You have fought well. Humans, I will give you that much. But this is where it ends. The battle for the architect throne began. Ships exploded like stars going supernova. Humans and Volanti died by the thousands, and at the center of it all, Alara made a decision. Kale, take a team and get to the station, she ordered. I will keep them busy. Captain, you cannot. That is an order, she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. Find a way to end this. That is all that matters now. Kale wanted to argue, wanted to refuse. But he saw the truth in her eyes. She knew what she was doing. She knew what it would cost. It has been an honor, he said, his voice breaking. The honor was mine, she replied with a sad smile. Now go save our people. As Kale's shuttle raced toward the architect throne, Alara turned her ship toward the enemy fleet. The mark on her arm blazed like a sun, and she flew into the fire. The architect throne was even more magnificent up close than it had appeared from space. Kale led his small team through corridors of living light, walls that shifted and changed around them like they were walking through a dream outside. The battle raged on. He could feel the vibrations of explosions, The distant screams of ships dying in the void, and somewhere out there, Captain Elara Vance was buying them time with her life. "Keep moving," Cale ordered. His voice hoarse with emotion, he refused to show. "We have to reach the central chamber." The Mark had given Elara knowledge, and she had shared what she could before they separated. Throne contained everything, the controls for all architect technology throughout the galaxy, the weapons that could end the war in an instant, and something else, a final message from the beings who had built all of this 1,000,000 years ago. There, Priya pointed ahead to a massive doorway that glowed with golden symbols, but they were not alone. High Commander Sareth Vel stood before the entrance, a weapon in his hand and murder in his glowing eyes. "I knew you would come here," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos outside. "The throne calls to those with the mark, and since I cannot let your captain reach it, I will make sure no human ever does." "Stand aside," Cale said, stepping forward. "This does not have to end in more death." "You are right," Sareth Vel agreed, raising his weapon. "It only needs to end in yours." The fight was brief, and brutal. Sareth Vel was a trained warrior from a species that had been fighting wars for millennia. Cale was a linguist who had learned to fight only because survival demanded it, but Cale had something the High Commander lacked. He had people fighting beside him. Marcus tackled Sareth Vel from the side, while Priya scrambled for the fallen weapon. Yuki appeared from nowhere and struck the High Commander across the face, and Cale, bleeding from a wound in his shoulder, managed to grab Sareth Vel and hold him down. "It is over," Cale gasped. "We have won." "No." Sareth Vel spat blood onto the glowing floor. "Your captain is dying out there. Even if you reach the throne, you cannot use it without her." As if in response to his words, the ceiling above them suddenly opened. Light poured down, and with it came something impossibly large. Vance descended through the beam, her body broken and burned from the battle outside, but her eyes blazing with power that seemed to fill the entire chamber. "Did you think it would be that easy to kill me?" she asked, a voice echoing with harmonics that sounded like 1,000 people speaking at once. Sareth Vel's face went white with terror. "Impossible. Your ship was destroyed. We watched it burn." "You watched my ship burn," Elara corrected, stepping forward on legs that should not have been able to carry her. "But I am more than a ship now. I am becoming what the architects intended." She walked past him toward the central chamber, and the doors opened at her approach. Inside was a room of pure light, with a single throne at its center, a seat that seemed to be made from crystallized starlight. "Captain," Cale called out, following her inside. "What are you doing?" "What I was chosen to do," she replied, turning to face him with a smile that was both sad and peaceful. "The architects left a choice for their inheritors, a final test." She gestured, and suddenly the space around them filled with images. The Volanthi fleet outside, still fighting desperately. Earth and all the human colonies, waiting to hear the outcome. 1,000 worlds across the galaxy, watching to see what humanity would do. "I can destroy them," Elara said softly. "All of them, the Volanthi, their allies, everyone who ever wanted to hurt us with a single thought. I can wipe them from existence." Her hand hovered over the throne, power crackling around her fingers. "But that is not the answer, is it?" she continued. "That was never the real test. The architects did not want to find a species capable of great destruction. The galaxy already has plenty of those." She looked at Cale with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. They wanted to find a species capable of something harder, something rarer. They wanted to find a species capable of choosing mercy when vengeance was easier. Elara sat down on the architect throne. Light exploded outward from the station, racing across the galaxy faster than anything should have been able to travel on every world, on every ship, on every communication device in existence. Elara's voice suddenly spoke. "People of the galaxy, hear me. I am Elara Vance, and I speak for humanity. The fighting outside stopped as both sides froze to listen. We did not ask for this gift. We did not seek power or conquest. We were just trying to survive in a universe that had no place for us. Her image appeared in the sky above every inhabited world. A human woman glowing with ancient light. But we are here now. And we have a choice to make. We could use what the architects left to rule you, to punish those who tried to destroy us, to become the very thing we fought against. She paused, and in that moment, every being in the galaxy held their breath. We choose differently. We choose to share what we have been given. We choose to heal the wounds this war has caused. We choose to offer our hand instead of our fist. To those who fought against us, we are not your enemies. We are not your conquerors. We forgive you. And we ask only for peace. To those who fought beside us, we honor your sacrifice and your friendship. We will never forget what you did for us. The age of the architects is over. They left their legacy to us not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we were capable of choosing love over hate, hope over fear, mercy over revenge. This is who we are. This is who we choose to be. And this is the future we offer to everyone willing to accept it. Elara's voice faded, but her message remained on the Volanti flagship. Sereth Vel's soldiers slowly lowered their weapons on Earth. People wept with relief and joy on 1,000 worlds. Beings of every species looked at humanity with new eyes, not as insects, not as threats, but as something they had never expected. Hoped the war ended not with a final battle, but with silence in the years that followed. Humanity did exactly what Elara had promised. They shared the architect technology, helping worlds that had been devastated by the war. They built alliances based on trust rather than fear. They became not rulers of the galaxy, but healers. Elara Vance survived. The throne had not killed her, but transformed her into something between human and architect, a bridge between what was and what could be. She served as humanity's ambassador, traveling from world to world with the mark on her arm glowing softly, and sometimes, late at night when the stars were bright, she would sit alone and think about how strange the universe was. A simple cargo hauler, doing a simple cargo run, had become the person who changed everything, not through violence or conquest, but through a single choice, the choice to be better than those who had hurt them somewhere in dimensions beyond understanding. The architects watched their children take their place among the stars, and for the first time in 1,000,000 years, they were proud the experiment had worked, the inheritors had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same again. 1 year after the end of the war, Kale found Elara standing at the viewport of a new ship, not the rusty Meridian, but something grander, built for exploration rather than cargo. "Where to next, Captain?" he asked. Elara smiled, the mark on her arm pulsing warmly. "Forward," she said simply. "Always forward." And together, they flew into the unknown, ready for whatever came next, because that was what humans did. They survived, they adapted, they hoped, and against all odds, they proved that sometimes the smallest voices could change the entire universe.